So I really wanted to like this film, but it wasn't to be. Hi guys, this is Farhad and welcome back to my channel Popcorn Reviews. If you're new to this channel, then please smash that subscribe button now. And as a video ritual, remember to like and comment on the video. Liking and commenting helps fuel the YouTube algorithm. And today I am covering one of the 3 Vishu releases that have made it to the theaters near you. The film that I'm going to be discussing is the new Malayalam film Bazooka, which is starring Mammootty, Mamuka as you would call him. And by now I think all of you would know that Bazooka hasn't resonated with the audiences. And while watching it, I felt exactly the same. My opinion was almost in sync with most people that did not like the film, and there was a reason for that. And let's try to understand what the reason is, as to why did Bazooka not click. And this is also a part of the review, so I will be also sharing some parts of the plot. It's spoiler free, absolutely spoiler free, so you can sit back and enjoy it. But I just wish to touch upon a few details in my review to understand as to why the plot did not kick in. First thing, the narrative structure. I felt the narrative structure of the film was far too oblong, I would say. When I say oblong, what do I mean by that? So the first 2 acts of the film there wasn't too much context to that, if I can say it. The context to the drama was a little missing, and you had almost everything hinged on the final 30 minutes, right from the emotional arc of the characters and also a revelation. There's a lot that is going on in the last 30 minutes, and so to actually hold the attention of the audience in the first 2 acts was a little difficult as far as Bazooka was concerned, which is one of the major reasons why the film does not work. If I have to come to the story and screenplay, Bazooka actually starts on a good note. There's a little tease at the airport, followed by an arrest that happens early on in the film, and you get to know that okay, this might be a heist kind of a film. So one of the themes of Bazooka highlighted in that opening act itself. It's almost like there's a heist that is ongoing and arrest that happens subsequently. Cut to the very next sequence that is there, that is the introduction of the protagonist. And I like the introduction of the protagonist, who quietly makes it to the bus and starts interacting with a co-passenger on the way to Bangalore. I think that was an interesting bit of a start, because the interactions also had a little theme of gaming which were there, which eventually, as you would know, would fall into place if you watch the film. You would know that. There also are little themes of the clues or the revelations that happen, and that you can say was in the form of a graphic novel, and that is again an innovative kind of you can say a theme that is there. It's quite innovative with it because it had that graphic novel feel to it. Even right from that little piece sequence of the Halloween party that had few setups that were there, to a clue that was being provided without any context. I think that again was a bit of a graphic feel that went in line with the underlying themes of the film, which was that of gaming, necessarily gaming. So what it meant to me, the thing that hit me was that there was a plot that was sitting somewhere buried deep within the realms of the structure that was there, the structural narrative structure that was there, but it didn't really come together. And this can be an understanding also to trying something different in the thriller genre. One theme that I've noticed in the Malayalam films this year, be it Rekha Chitram or Pravina Kudu, Shappu, or Dominic and the Lady's Purse, all these films that are there, some good, some not so good, some very good. One major theme is that in the Thriller Officer on Duty, by the way. So the major theme of thriller that is there, it almost tries to work on the innovations in the thriller. Here the innovation came in the form of the narrative structure or the editing style, which wasn't necessarily a good thing because there wasn't too much context to the drama. So after there's this point in which there's an action sequence that takes place. Cut to that, there's a flashback that starts, wherein you are introduced slowly to the characters of the cops and his team who are said to be brilliant. One little flaw there, you are airdropped into a crime scene that, by the way, wasn't staged very well also, but it also what it did was that it did not give you enough context as to what was going on. So your mindset was almost whether to comprehend it, because there were no emotions backing it, remember. So you had to comprehend as to what is going on, place your thoughts, try and invest in the proceedings even when there is no context. And that is the worst thing that can happen during a thriller kind of a film. The same happens also with its next heist, which is there. The next heist that you see in the film also suffers from the same zone, and slowly you are introduced to the theme of the film, which is that of gaming. But the non-linear structure again comes into the picture, so you aren't really settled into the drama. The moment you're trying to settle into that drama in that past sequence that has the gaming theme to it, again it cuts to the current timeline, with the character of Mammootty, which is interacting with a co-passenger, which is played by Shahjahan Hakim. Flaw was that some of the events in the first half do not necessarily come together also. There's this fight sequence that happens, doesn't necessarily come together. The interval block is a little interesting, but it doesn't really add up. I mean, the stakes are low is what I'm trying to say. The stakes are not too high, and that is what even the second half suffers from. The first part of the second half, if I have to be brutally honest, the picture starts getting a little clearer in the first part of the second half. You get to know that there's some investigation going on, there's a serial robbery that is happening, the stage is set, the trap is set, everything is there, but the stakes are low. Remember, this is just a robbery, this is not a murder when the stakes are actually high. And I think that is again another difference in the plot. The stakes are never as high as the written material would be. Now just imagine, just put yourself in a situation and imagine what if there was little context with respect to the characters and the emotional arc of the characters. Would you be able to invest in the drama a little more? My answer would be yes. Probably this structure came in the way of a lot of things, because I would have probably invested in the drama or been more involved in the drama with the chase sequences or with the cat and mouse game that is happening a little more. And I think that was again one of the flaws that were there. Which brings me to the 30 minutes, the last 30 minutes that are there. The last 30 minutes had a lot going on in its favor. It almost reminded me of two examples I'll give, one cinematic and one of cricket. One is that of, if I have to say the cricketing example first, it will be that of Mahendra Singh Dhoni. Mahendra Singh Dhoni has been a great finisher, great legend of the game, but his style of cricket is sometimes to take it so deep in the game that it almost becomes impossible after a point to win a match on his own, and that is what lately is happening with CSK. Similarly, in a cinematic point of view, the example would be Bhool Bhulaiya 3. This seemed like a sequence of another film altogether, because the urgency was there, everything was there. Even the revelation which I saw coming in from a mile was still decent enough to work. The character arcs and everything was in play, but it was only rushed in the final act. It wasn't given enough time, even some certain plot points when you're trying to join the puzzle together, it was almost fleeting after a point. So the emotions were still not there, the emotional arc or the emotional core was still not there. And the face-off also wasn't there between the protagonist and the antagonist. The final face-off again wasn't there. So it was kind of a hard deal, because the structure was such, it could not really, play around with a lot of things. It relied heavily on the revelation at the end, as opposed to something that could have, revealed at some point and then, focused on the changing dynamics, something like that. Or you did not need a very convoluted kind of a structure. So I felt that there was some, a good story, a promising thriller somewhere buried between this narrative style that was there. and that was the screenplay as far as I'm concerned. Coming to the technical aspects of things, and this is where things get a little interesting, the dialogues, the music and the direction, I felt, the dialogues did not really land, because I think it was really, they tried a little too hard to get into the Gen Z lingo, which was a hit and a miss for me. Certain things like, just like coding or, exchanges of this is so easy, it just almost gives a feeler of a boomer, if I can say so. It's not really how Gen Zs work, or not how really how Gen Zs work on it. So I think this was again one of those dialogues where it did not really work, it did not really come together. But the most impressive part of the technical aspects of the film was the music. I think the music was spectacular here, because Saeed Abbas, the music director Saeed Abbas, understood the world so well, and totally sent out one banger of another after another. In fact, even the slow-mos were slayed because of the music. In fact, the music was the only one that somewhat made the film watchable to an extent. I wouldn't say completely, but it was at least trying to add a cohesive unit and keep you just about on the brink of staying awake, or staying attentive to what is happening when the writing and the structure was off. I'll get to the structure in a bit again, but the music, the BGM, absolutely phenomenal. I think phenomenal is the word. And again, another banger of a score from Saeed Abbas. Cinematography is also pretty good. It's actually stylized really well. The sequences are shot very well. I did feel that the cinematography at least added frames that reeked of some sort of style, and that was again a positive for me. At times relative, but on the positive side of things, I would still count it. The issue was the editing, and this is where it can tell you how important an editing in a film is. This is almost like a masterclass of editing in the wrong sense, because this is a film that probably was destroyed on the edit table. And I mean no disrespect to late Nishad, who I think has passed away. It's not meant to disrespect anybody. It's just that the narrative structure, the design by itself, in terms of its editing, is such that it doesn't really allow you to invest in the moment, in the characters, in the sequences. And I think that wasn't off. I could see a little clashing style of editing also, because I saw two editor names that were there, one of Mr. Nishad and one of somebody else. I think the exchange that may have happened is also somewhat of an issue. Mean no disrespect to anybody again. Director Dino Dennis. I think he misses the mark here, and this is not only to do with the narrative style but also the execution. I think some sequences weren't really staged well, I would say. I think one sequence, if I can say so, would be the highway action sequence, which didn't really create the desired impact that was there. Another sequence being the final act. The final act, there was no face-off, and even the first high sequence that was there, you were airdropped into that high sequence, the temple run sequence, if I can call it, for people who watched it. That again, did not really land. It wasn't staged enough to hold your attention through and through. So I think the direction was a bit of a misbag. I wouldn't say completely a miss, but it still lacked in execution in many ways. Coming to the performances, I think the performances are decent but not spectacular because of the limitations of the structure and the execution. I felt some actor like Shahjahan Hakim, I think he did a good job here. He did a spectacular job in at least being sincere with his craft. Even Ishwari Menon has a good screen presence, did a good job again. Gautham Vasudev Menon, I wasn't fully convinced of his demeanor as a cop, I would say. His performance was a little bit of a mixed bag for me. He did not have that, that commanding presence to make me believe that he's a cop within control of his jurisdiction. And I think that was slightly contradictory to how his team was also announced, whether it be Siddharth Bhartan, who plays one of the members, Arjun, I think, and Gayatri Iyer, who plays Sanya. I think that was a little bit of a hassle also, because the revelations that they actually stumble upon was actually basic. It just needed a little Google to get things together. And I think that the impact of the characters did not really come through, is what I'm trying to say. Likewise, it goes for Mammootty also. Now, this remains one of the weaker performances of Mammootty, and if you've been following my channel, you know of what a big fan I am of Mammootty as well, Mamuka as I would call it. The problem was that he wasn't well utilized in the first two acts. The utilization was an issue because the director almost kept him numb for first two acts before absolutely going crazy in the final act. It was almost like Dhoni, as I said, you know, too little too late. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't win, and that is what happens. This was a good performance also, by the way, but not one of his stronger performances. And I would like to make a detailed video about Mammootty at some point during the week, once I'm finished with the visual releases that are there. It makes for an interesting case study as well. So overall, I felt that Bazooka is that one promising thriller that was completely destroyed on the edit table. The structure did not work in itself, and I think that was where the film was lacking. The criticism about the film is in fact justified. I am not someone to follow a trend and just blindly criticize a film, but it is the truth as far as I'm concerned. But if you share a different opinion, let me know in the comment section. Also, if you have any thoughts about the film Bazooka, let me know in the comments. I would love to have a discussion with you. If you're liking this video, remember to smash that like button. This is a different setup that I'm trying. Let me know if this works or not. Also, you can share this video with your friends and family. Ask them to subscribe to the channel. My detailed review of Bazooka is available on my site, Popcorn Reviews with the double S, the link of which is in the description box below. You can read the review in your language of your choice. You can also follow me in different social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd. I do not end up making a video on everything that I watch, but I do write a lot. All latest reviews you'll find on my site and on my social media handles. So I'll require support there as well. I'll see you again soon with another video. Till then, let me know how this setup is working for you, whether it's working, whether the previous one was better. And I'll see you again soon with another video. There are a host of visual releases that I need to work on, so I will get to that. Till then, take care of yourselves, and thank you so much for your love and support. Cheers.